What is up, guys? It's your boy, sleep-deprived Cacus. Seriously, my wife had a baby a couple of days ago, and I woke up today sick as a dog. I've spent more time on this intro than I have sleeping the past few days, so if I start slurring my words, that is why. I hope you guys can forgive me. But today, we've got some brand spanking new Destiny 2 news, courtesy of the Bungie weekly update that has just gone live, revealing official information. And so, let's get started. Now, as for what's been going on this week for Destiny 2, well, really not too much other than on the Tuesday with the weekly reset, we did get a developer live stream where they showed off a lot of the content coming in Act 2 of episode Revenant. So we got gameplay from the Tomb of Elders, which is kind of the big new activity coming there. They also looked at the new seasonal artifact perks, the new weapons coming in Act 2, a ton of stuff. If you guys want to see that information, already did a video on it, check it out, it is linked right up above. But as for the brand new information within the TWAB, Bungie rehashes some of it, so like here they go over the new artifact perks. Again, we already went over these, all of them, within the live stream video. So moving on from there, the big thing Bungie talks about this week is the huge Sandbox update that is coming with the launch of Act 2. First of all, and probably most importantly, they are drastically improving the recharge rate of all roaming supers for PvE. So you can see right here, they talk about kind of the history of balancing supers, going away from passive regen to wanting you to be in combat, and how they've made several changes over the years. But they end here with, starting with Act 2, we will be changing the damage-based recharge parameters for all roaming supers against PvE combatants only, and increasing the amount of super energy gained when damaging combatants by roughly 3 times the amount it is today. So they continue saying the intent here is that you are more likely to have a roaming super when you need it for that panic activation or jump an enemy spawn point. In our internal playtests, we've been having a blast with extra activations per encounter or activity, and it is especially spicy with fireteam coordination. As a reference, if you were using between 3 and 5 Nova Bombs while playing an advanced Nightfall, you can now charge around 6 or 8 Nova Warp activations in the same activity. That is super, super interesting. They also mention here is, in addition to this, we're upping the damage roaming supers do against champions by 30 to 55% depending on the super. This roughly brings all roaming supers to a similar damage profile against champions and will give them a distinct advantage in your next Grandmaster Nightfall over a one-off super. And then they list here, you can expect these changes on all of these supers. So you can just see right here, like Hunter, all the roaming supers for all of the different classes. This is insane, dude. Every time I say something is insane, there's someone in the comments being like, you say everything's insane. 300% more roaming super is insane. And if you don't think it's insane, what are you, the Grinch? Okay, like this is actually going to, I think, quite dramatically change the meta. If you're playing a Prismatic Titan, if you're playing anything Prismatic, frankly, if you're playing a subclass and you kind of just have a super on that doesn't really impact the build too much. I know when I play Prismatic Titan, a lot of the time I'm just using Twilight Arsenal because it's a very good super, right? Now I might have to shift over to the more roaming supers to get advantage of this insane recharge. Like, you do get a ton of damage resistance when you're in roaming supers, and if you really are getting them significantly faster, significantly more often, I think a lot of builds will start to change to these. But moving on from there, guys, Bungie talks about the exotic armor getting buffs and nerfs. First of all, the point contact cannon brace gauntlets for the Titan. The amplified lightning bolts now do 100% increased damage over base, up from 50%. And the lightning strike defeats now also refund melee energy. They've reduced thunderclap refund by around 10% to compensate for the increased energy gains on average. After that, the Radiant Flux, and this is a great example of a super that you have to look at because Radiant Flux buffs Arc Staff. Arc Staff was dog water for years, so no one would use the Radiant Staff, but now that you have Arc Staff and all the other roaming supers getting this massive, 3 times more regeneration rate, you have to now take a look at all of these exotic armor pieces that buff roaming supers. So for Radiant Flux, the Synapse Junction's super damage benefit increased to 20% per stack, up from 14% per stack. The max benefit is now around 70% of a damage increase, up from 50%. So you're going to be doing much more damage with your Arc Staff using Radiant Flux. After that, the Baladros Wraithweavers. So they've increased the shatter damage to 150%, up from 100%, and they fixed an issue where enemies were inconsistently getting the boosted shatter damage, which led to decreased overall damage. So the increased shatter damage now shows as a yellow number to aid with the visibility of the perk, guys. Now, they say that's actually all for the exotics, but they say they have plenty of other buffs and nerfs coming in the Heresy episode, so keep an eye out for that. Moving on from there, guys, fixing Telesto. They say a short update from the weapons team. Most of our weapon focused updates are aimed at PvP this patch, and we will discuss those in a bit more detail, but we do have a couple of minor changes for PvE. So the breach grenade launchers, they say they've heard the feedback loud and clear that the nerf to Mountaintop felt unnecessarily strong, so we have walked back some of the speed limit reduction we previously gave to the blast impulses damage. So with micro missile frames, they've increased the velocity players can generate with the rocket jumping blast. So they reversed that. That's good. Then with the Telesto, they've actually increased the detonation damage by 20% in PvE. Expect this to absolutely break the game. Not in an overpowered way, just in a, anytime they mess with Telesto, something goes terribly wrong. But moving on from there, we have a massive update from the PvP strike team. So first of all, in terms of the sandbox, they provide this chart here, kind of showing weapon viability. They say the meta has moved away from closer range engagements. We believe the consolidation around these specific weapons is due in large to a combination of a couple of things, and you can see that right here. So for abilities, here's what they're doing. Specifically, this is for Prismatic, and it says, it has become clear that the Prismatic subclasses allowed combinatorics are problematic for Crucible in a way that we cannot easily solve with spot tuning. And as a result, they say, as such, we've made the decision to give all Prismatic subclasses a blanket 15% additional ability cooldown penalty inside of the Crucible, which should help to offset the current king-making strength of these subclasses and provide some reasons to run the base abilities on standard subclasses. This penalty stacks on top of the current overall PvP ability sandbox penalty of 15%. So in Act 2, if you're playing Prismatic in the Crucible, all of your abilities will recharge 15% slower. Now moving on to the other stuff. So for Storm's Edge, they're going to reduce the height of the damage impulse from 5 meters to 3.75 meters. They've reduced the damage resistance against players from 53% to 43% on both cast and during the spin attack. And then they've moved from tier 3 to tier 1 in terms of the super cooldown. So big nerf to Storm's Edge. Then for armor, Knucklehead Radar. They say this exotic's ability to provide information to PvP players without requiring them to engage is a big benefit. So they've changed how to activate the perk. It now requires the wearer to damage a player to mark the target. The target is marked for 3 seconds, down from 7 seconds. Now moving on to weapon archetypes. For bows, specifically precision bows, they've increased the body shot damage by 10% and it does not affect the Le Monarque. For hand cannons, specifically aggressive hand cannons, they've increased the damage by 3% and this allows them to kill all resilience levels in a 2 crit 1 body. Then for the Igneous Hammer specifically, they've reduced its stability, handling, and aim assist stats by 3. Then for the Better Devils, they've increased stability, handling, and aim assist by 3. All right, well, so took from the Igneous Hammer, gave it to the Better Devils. Then the Yesterday's Question, also, they've corrected an issue where Headseeker was not appropriately increasing critical hit damage after body shot damage. And then for machine guns, so they say adaptive machine guns specifically have been the heavy weapon meta for quite a while. So they've changed the scaler that determines how much ammo you get when you pick up a crate. So magazine sizes of 50 or less get 21 rounds. Magazine sizes between 51 and 59 get between 21 and 26 rounds. And you can see all the different stuff right here, guys. So I think overall, a little bit less ammo for those adaptive machine guns. Now moving on from there, for perks, High Ground. They say dealing damage to a player with a primary weapon now only grants a single stack of the damage buff. Dealing damage with a special weapon or against combatants continues to grant maximum stacks. So the Bygone God Roll got a big nerf right here. You're only going to get that little bit. You're going to get High Ground ×1 for being, in the higher ground. Then for explosive payload, they've reduced the splash damage from the perk when used on legendary hand cannons by 7% against players only. After that, the Telesto, they've said they've corrected an issue where the Telesto was doing less damage than intended in PvP. The Ariana's Vow, they fixed critical damage bug in PvP. The Thorn and Lumina, they've increased the base stability by 5. And then for General Crucible, guys, they go into a lot of detail about the inner workings of the PvP systems. So firstly, we have a big section of lobby balance. And I'm just going to leave this on screen, and you can pause if you want to read this. But, hopefully we have better lobby balancing going into Act 2. Now, we also have a section on mercy rules that you can, again, pause and read right here. After that, guys, we have more Festival of the Lost Fashion 2024 and Festival of the Lost 2024 submissions. So you can see right here, we have like a cat right here, cat costume, and we also have some other stuff that you can see. Of course, the links to the original creators are going to be in the TWAB, which is linked in the description of this video, guys. Now, moving on from there, Bungie talks about the latest crossover that was announced with Street Fighter, and you can see that right here. That was announced during the live stream. And also, guys, the last thing we're going to talk about here is the XTYUS damage buff update. So Bungie says at the start of Revenant, we issued a patch note stating that the XTYUS would receive a 33% increase to direct impact damage on top of spawning more moths. This note was left over from internal playtesting. We originally planned to increase its damage. We found the weapon was overperforming across numerous activities. We continue to monitor the performance of the weapon in the live environment and are happy with its current play. So I guess, unfortunately, the XTYUS is not getting a damage buff, which is like, yeah, okay, you're happy with its performance, but it's not like the XTYUS is like taking over the meta in every single activity. But I should mention the XTYUS, because the moths cause a lot of blinding, right? The moths blind and you can produce way more moths. Well, with the final new seasonal artifact perk, Arc Compounding, where arc sources deal increased damage to blind targets, honestly, the XTYUS is going to be great with Arc Compounding, guys. And that is going to be it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. I'm going to go to sleep. Just kidding. No, I'm not, because I have a new baby. So, guys, if you want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.